Everybody's human, and people love to see somebody big in trouble. And you know, even when Limbaugh got caught in stuff worse than what Sheen's involved in, I wasn't cheering his downfall, even though I disagree with him passionately, because I just don't. I only cheer for real tyrants going down. You know, people like Hitler or Stalin or Mao.
I agree totally, and I think you're absolutely right about it. I think we love watching people ascend the ladder, but we like watching the ladder fall over much better. And it's you know, what I think it is I think that, you know, the media and the way the media works and the way publishing works, et cetera. And I'm a part of it, so I mean, I'd be one. I should be pointing the finger back at myself. But the idea is to create a lure, so that someone feels larger than life. And I think, you know, we talk about why film and why celebrities, specifically like actors and film, why for some reason it is such a part of our collective consciousness. And I think it's for that very reason. You know, I can go see The Hurt Locker, and you can go see The Hurt Locker completely separately, but we have an experience that provides connectivity. And so you and I both now are connected through seeing that film. We can talk about it. We can talk about the issues around it, et cetera. So I think that's one reason. And, you know, it stems.
And I think it's sick wanting to see somebody fall.
Absolutely.
When this happens to our own families and neighbors. This is sick. This shows a sickness, and I see it getting progressively worse, that people love to see somebody in trouble. But I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Well, I think to get to what you're saying right now, too, I think that when someone gets really angry at someone who's suffering, rather than look at it from love and detachment and with compassion, I think it says something about the individual, you know, that's throwing the stones. You know, he who is without sin, may he cast the first stone. I mean, to do a biblical quote, it's absolutely spot on. You know, we are all fallible. We're all failed. We all have our own problems. I realized several years ago that, you know, the one thing that we all have in common is that we all have problems. Period. We all have problems. And I think our role in life is to try to work through those problems.
And that's the human condition.
Absolutely, 100%. So, yeah, it is.
Yeah, I only want to bring down people that are hurting masses of innocents and who are consciously setting people up, consciously hurting others, consciously launching wars, torturing people, betraying. That's why I hate these politicians. Bush, of course, and Obama, expanding wars, wiretapping, continuing the torture, continuing the arrest, and watching him use all of this hope that people had put into him against them. And again, I don't personally hate Obama. I know he's a puppet who they plan to destroy. It's just that I realize that the institution itself is just so ruthless.
Yeah, the institution, and I think that's a good point. I worked with him. You know, he seemed like one of those guys you'd want to go out and have a beer with. He seemed like a totally cool guy. I believe, truthfully, that when he was campaigning, he has a lot of, you know, ethos that he adheres to, that he really believes in. But I think when you get in that office and the first day that you're briefed, you know, it's all bets are off. You know, I mean, the first day it was like, we're closing Guantanamo, and I saw a photograph recently that was the most ironic photograph. It was a picture of one of the guards, or one of the officials at Guantanamo, hanging his photo up in the lobby when you come in. You know, is the most ironic image, considering, you know, if you've ever been to a military installation, when you walk in the main building, there's the chain of command. So, you know, you'd walk in a building during Bush's administration, and Bush was in the middle, and then on either side there were photographs of the chain of command that goes down. So at Guantanamo, there's the chain of command, and there's Obama, the photograph of Obama right in the middle. And, you know, once again, you know, I mean, I truly believe, like, I won't weep when Kissinger drops. I won't weep when Rockefeller drops. I don't think honestly anybody will. And that's really unfortunate, you know, that they've lived a life like that. But, you know, once again, you know, I try to view these things.
Yeah, their human journey is just a tragic event of power and avarice. Now, I interrupted you with a break. Let's go back to that Esquire piece that you were talking about. Recap it and then tell us about it.
Okay, the assignment, to get back to it, Esquire was doing a piece on airport security, and the idea of, you know, how difficult. My assignment was, Dan, research and illustrate how difficult it would be to take down an airliner. And initially I thought, well, that's kind of an irresponsible job. It's kind of irresponsible to illustrate that. But then I thought about it, and I thought, well, it's actually more irresponsible not to illustrate how easy it is, because anybody that wants to take down an airliner is going to take down an airliner, period. period. You know, they're going to do it. They're going to do the research required, and they're going to figure it out. So I started looking into it, and I spent several hours on the internet, and I came up with a formula for an explosive that was non-detectable by the screening that's used now, which is all carbon-based detection. This is a chemical element. It's got 80% of the destructive power or the explosive force of TNT, and it can be made at your house. It can be carried. So the method I came up with is this. You know, you get 3 guys working together, and this is all based on the fact that these guys are going to off themselves, but there doesn't seem to be a shortage of guys that are willing to
And you're doing this drill to try to stop this from happening.
Or to try to illustrate to people like, hey, look how easy this is. You know, look how easy it would be to do this, you know, and it's almost like a wake-up call. It's like, oh, my God, you know, like, you know, we think these guys are, you know, the security is such a Band-Aid. You know, it's, you know, right after 9/11, what was it like? You couldn't walk 2 feet away from your bag without getting, like, scolded, right? Now it's like, I'll leave my bag at the gate, ask someone to watch it, go to the bathroom, come back. It's like no one's worried. There was National Guard in the airport when it...
But we go back to the point that most of it's manufactured. Have you had time to see the underwear bombing?
I totally agree. You know, it's...
I mean, the State Department says they were ordered by a U.S. intelligence agency to help him get on the plane.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So it's the same thing. It's the whole idea of like you keep them in fear, you know, threat level orange, threat level yellow, threat level red. I laugh when I hear that stuff when I'm at the airport because it reminds me of that Goering quote. It's like, you know, keep them in fear, keep them feeling like they're being repressed. Let me get back to the Esquire thing. So I figure out the whole process to do this. You know, you get 3 guys. You have 2 guys carrying the explosive device in their groin. Once again, usually, and this might be changing, but usually, even with a pat down, they don't go right to that area. You know, so you can get that in, and then you take in a 9-volt battery, some wire, a couple flashlight bulbs. I used a timer. Was a timer off of a dog feeder, right? That I bought at Academy or something. And so I took the idea is you take all this stuff in independently, which is it'd be very easy to get in. The only thing I thought would be difficult was maybe some duct tape. So I thought, well, what you'd do is you'd line your entire bag with duct tape, and then you could get it in, and then you could pull the strips off and use it. But then you go into the little kiosk, you buy a couple bottles of Coke, and you all go to the men's room. One guy goes into the handicap stall. He spends about 15 minutes assembling the thing, getting it all ready to go, puts it on his bag, takes it into the plane. And then the research further was, well, okay, so he blows it up in the plane. It might compromise, the hull. It might do this, it might do that, but it probably wouldn't take it down. So what you do then, which is also another one of these ridiculous Band-Aids, is that, once 9/11 happened, they reinforced all the cockpit doors. They made these Kevlar doors. You can't get in. But what they didn't do is they didn't reinforce the bulkhead behind the captain or the co-pilot. All they did is do a door. So 757 and a couple other aircrafts have in the first class cabin, they have a bathroom that immediately backs up against the cockpit. So you go in there and you detonate it, and it's done. And, this was, 6 hours of research on my part. And so the idea is that it's incredibly simple to do this stuff.
How long ago did you do that for Esquire?
It was like 2 years ago. And I wish I had brought that image with me, because what I did is I did a still life of all of the elements that were required.
What should we Google? Dan Winters, Esquire, how to bomb a plane?
Let's see. Do that. It was Esquire or Best Life. I'm thinking after I said Esquire, I was thinking it might be Best Life. Do Dan Winters' Best Life bomb, and I bet it'll...
Dan Winters' Best Life bomb. Did you guys have any luck? Because he wanted to also show people how fake the photo is with the newspaper and the rifle of Lee-Harvey-Oswald in the front yard where the shadows are all wrong. Okay, well, we'll show that first, but we're running out of time here. And I knew it'd be great to have you on the radio because you've got so much knowledge and we're so similar in so many ways in our perspectives. You were telling me stories, and I don't know if some of them were off record or if you want to tell stories, but what are some interesting stories about movie stars or politicians or Rick Perry or whatever that you can tell?
Okay.